Alright, quickly, I'm going to do a quick tutorial how to make quarter pipes and half pipes in Godot that you can quickly experiment with for just prototyping levels, and you can skateboard on them really easily in the level. There's better ways of doing this. This is just a quick tutorial of how to do it, really quick and hack in Godot using some of the built-in tools that are in Godot. There's many different ways to even use these built-in tools, so this is just one quick example of how to do it. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a combiner. So you want to search for a CSG combiner. CSG combiner. CSG is their system for making objects out of combining objects together, really. So step one, get a combiner and drop it in here, and then add a child. And what you're going to want is a box, a CSG box. And then here it is. So you got a box, and then you're also going to want a cylinder. So we're just going to add this stuff real quick, and then we're going to do cool stuff with them. So CSG cylinder, here it is. So we got a combiner, and inside we got a child that's a box, and then a child that's a cylinder. And they have to be in this order. So we'll get there. So first things first, when you're using a combiner and you have multiple objects, all the kind of real metadata goes out on the combiner, not on the objects. So things like collision and tags and things like that. So these currently don't have any collision, and we can't set their collision because they have a parent that is going to master control that. So on the combiner, you want to set the collision to true. So you want to say use collision. And then now the objects within it will have collision. So that's the most important thing you want to do first. The second really important thing we want to do, like I said, the flags and surface flags and collision won't be on these individual objects because they're combined into one object, right? So all that information needs to be out on this object. So our gameplay tags need to be there also. So you need to add our flags metadata. Just like wall ride, we have metadata that lets the game know that different geometry is going to behave differently. So this flag, gameplay flag, is vert, for short form for vertical. So that was it. So you wanted to add metadata. It's small f. It shows it large F here with flags, vert, and it's a string. And that's on our combiner. So like I said, you make a combiner, turn on the collision, set metadata, flags, vert, add a box, add a cylinder. That's the start of it all. Once you got this, you're started. You can now make a quarter pipe. It doesn't look like a quarter pipe yet, but you can make a quarter pipe. So I'll show you. So let's just hide the cylinder for now because we don't need to see it. And let's make this box. Like I said, I have come up with a couple standards here that I think work good that I recommend people use. So for a standard quarter pipe, I recommend 2 meters tall with a 3 meter radius. And for a mini ramp, I recommend 1 meter tall with a 1.5 meter radius. So you'll see here what we're doing. Basically, we're making a cube and we're cutting out of the cube with a cylinder. And when you think quarter pipe, that's exactly what we're doing. We're making a quarter of a pipe shape with a cylinder. And so if you do it the exact same height, it's going to be steeper. So you want your transition to be larger, the radius of your transition to be larger than the height of your ramp. So if it was 2 by 2, this would be really tight and it would go right up to vertical. And I found, like I said, so 2 meter tall, 3 meter radius, or 1 meter tall, 1.5 meter radius. So basically 1.5 your height is going to get you something that feels good. Cool, so let's do it. So we have a box here. Let's make its height 2 meters, like I said. That goes from its center, so it's sticking into the ground here. So let's raise it up 1 meter, so it is actually 2 meters tall. Let's make it nice and wide, right? Let's make it 20 meters wide, so it's nice and wide. Let's make it even wider. Let's make it 40 meters wide. Ooh, look at that, it's huge. Cool. And then it's got to be a little bit deeper, right? Because again, look at this. It needs to be pretty wide because we're going to cut this big shape out of it. Our cylinder is going to be, this is 2 meters tall, our cylinder is going to be 3 meters wide. So this needs to be at least 4 meters deep kind of thing. So let's go there, let's just call this 4. Boom. So it's nice and deep, right? So we have lots of space to cut a nice cylinder for our transition now. And then we'll still have a bit of a deck over here, right? So cool. So just to review again, CSG combiner, set the collision to true, and set the metadata, add a metadata string called flags, small f, and call it vert. Add a box, add a cylinder. And then yeah, we're making our box 2 meters tall, super wide, and pretty deep, so we have some space for a deck. And then here's our cylinder, so we can turn that on again. It's over here. Let's move it out. Boom. So cylinders, they come in upright, so you want to rotate it so it's laying down parallel to this. So I'm going to rotate it around at Z, 90 degrees here, and it'll be laying down now parallel to this. So like I said, I want a 3 meter radius. That's what I said is works nice and gets you this nice relaxed shape. So 2 meter tall ramp with a 3 meter radius transition. So on my cylinder over here, I need to set its radius at 3 meters. So boom, we have this radius now of 3 meters. And the most important thing is it's not cutting out, right? It's not carving out of this thing the way this shape over here does because of the operation. So like I said, these combiners, they combine things. This box, we want this box to be here. Its operation is union. It adds to anything around it. This is cylinder that comes after it in the order of operations. We're going to change its operation to subtraction. And when it's subtraction, so any kind of combination of these CSG nodes, when you have something under something else that's set as subtraction, it's going to cut out of it because the order of operation goes top bottom. So now we see it's cutting out of it, right? So what we should do is we should make this nice and wide so that it's, nice and wide and cutting out the whole thing. So we know this thing was 40 wide, right? And remember I said these things we had to turn it on its side, so its height is actually like its width. So let's make it like 41 wide, so it's just like wider than the ramp. All right, cool, so here we are. We have this thing that can cut out of our box, right? We can raise it up here. We should raise it up. It is a 3 meter radius, so it should be 3 meters high off the ground so that it's just touching the ground. And then you can see, where am I over here? If I slide it into my cube, I get a quarter pipe. But here's the one thing. So we can see we got this nice quarter pipe now, but it looks like garbage, right? It's like, wow, that's a pretty terrible transition. It's just like 2 banks. So we need to make the resolution, right? It needs more sides. It basically needs a lot more sides. So this has 8. I found 24 works good. So 24 is going to give you a good enough curve that's not going to cause too much, stumbling in the game, and it'll feel pretty smooth. And so yeah, that's really like the key. Really is like like I said, you get a combiner. You got to set its collision on, you got to set the metadata flags for vert on it because it won't be on the objects inside it. It's all combined into its parent, that information. And then we need a box and a cylinder. And I made the box 2 meters tall because I want to go do 2 meters. I made the cylinder 2 meters tall. 3 meter radius because like I said, you want it larger than the height so it's a little more relaxed. And so yeah, that's what I did. And then 24 sides and set it as subtraction. And then yeah, like basically, you can move it in anywhere, but you can see, right? Where you want to move it is so that its very bottom is right at the very edge of this thing. So often I just go into the top view because it's a little bit easier. And then I just kind of push it along all the way, right? I can zoom all the way in, so I just get right to that edge. Bing! And then I know I've got a nice edge. Sweet. Come have a look at it. And there it is, see? This nice edge that goes right from the floor up these different gradients. Boom, 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 boom. But because the radius is larger than, so this is where it goes to vert, but our ramp stops here. This is 2 meters, but this is 3 meters. So there's a whole kind of other meter here. And that's why, yeah, that's what makes this ramp a little more mellow, right? It doesn't go up as steep at the very top. And that feels good. Like I said, that feels good. So you get like a 2 meter tall with a 3 meter radius, and it feels pretty good. So again, combiner, turn its collision on, add the metadata string, flags, vert, add a box, add a cylinder, make the cylinder subtraction, make the box 2 meters tall, make the cylinders 3 meter radius, and you're good to go. So that's the starting point. We need a rail on the lip, otherwise you will never actually launch into vert air properly. So what I do is I just add it to here. So I add a child node, and it's Path 3D. You can search for Path 3D. That's splines, curves, whatever in Godot. That's what they are. So now I have to add my points. So what I do is I go into the top view, but what I'm going to do before that is I'm going to add a texture to this so that I can see it better. So I'm going to select both of them, the cutout and the object, and I'm going to go up to Material. I'm going to go New Standard Material 3D. I'm going to click on it so I can edit it. I'm going to go into albedo and the texture for albedo. I'm going to open up here and load. I'm going to come into my base level assets because I have a lot of textures to use for prototyping. In textures here, I have a subfolder for blockout. Now I can use any of these. So I can get a nice blockout and something that I can see. So we'll use this green one, and it puts these like checkers so it's easier to see. You go to UV1, triplanar on, and then it sort of projects it a little bit better. It's not great, but at least it's a little better. So now you can like at least see it, you know, a little better. So here we are. So my path, I'm gonna go into my top view, and then I just drop a couple nodes. Let's just double check. Yeah, there it is up here, so we're good, yeah. Like I said, that's where having a texture on it helps, but not all the time. So I'll add another one, and that's going all the way across here. Bing. So I'll go to the edit mode, select both of these, and raise them up because it defaults them way down on the ground, unfortunately. But that's fine. It actually needs to default it somewhere, so 0 is good enough. Cool. And then, like I said, there's these little kind of feathers, the helpers that come off. I usually drop it until it's until it's like halfway in. And then same thing, I place it so that it's on the lip, but it's like, you know, the little helper is like halfway kind of thing. So we're on the lip, but not over the lip, and close to the lip, but not right on it, and we're not way deep in the deck. I find that kind of is my sweet spot. All right, cool. So here's my rail. Like I said, it's very important to have a rail at the top here because that's what the system uses to guide you while you're in the air and vert air. So you'll never invert air if there's no rail here. Like all rails, we need to tag it and say it's in the rails group. And then I'm going to give it metadata. This is the terrain metadata, and it's a string. I hit add, and I'm going to call it angle iron. There's multiple metadatas for terrain sounds for rails. It is rail, will sound like a metal rail. Line will sound like a power line. It's the sound of a metal ring plus like extra like zzz noise to sort of sound like as if you're grinding a power line. There's angle iron, which sounds like an angle iron, a metal angle iron that you put on a wood ramp. And there's also concrete, which would be like a concrete ledge or something like that. You get that sound. So I'll use angle iron and just pretend this is a wood ramp or something like that. So now we're done, like we said. So this went a little longer than I wanted to, but that's okay. So like I said, I'll just review really quickly. You get a combiner. Make sure you turn its collision on. Make sure you add the metadata, flags, small f. That's a string and it's vert. And then you add a box and a cylinder. Set the cylinder to subtraction. Make the box 4 meters tall. Make it very long and pretty deep, at least like 5 or whatever. Oh, make it 2 meters tall, sorry, 2 meters tall. The box, 2 meters tall. Make it nice and deep, about 4 meters, and pretty wide, however wide you want it to be. Cylinder, 3 meter radius, like I said. 2 meter tall ramp, 3 meter radius. Transition. And then you just place it and align it right in there, so it's just align the bottom of it with the floor, and then just tuck it in. And then same thing, the path is our spline, put it at the top there, right along the lip, and set it in the group for rails. Give it, some terrain if you want, and you should be good to go. So this, we should be able to load in this level now, and we'll see it. I'll keep one of these. I'll check in this template level with like one of each of these maybe. Not this other one over here, but yeah, let's quickly just run it just so we can see it. Test level, and here it is. Cool, so here we are. Ooh, there's the quarter pipe. Like I said, you could take this and copy paste and rotate 180 and you got a half pipe. And you can use spheres and things to make like corners and bowls and interesting fun stuff also. But for now, like, yeah, not a whole lot is supported. Cool. So yeah, like I said, I really feel like 2 meter tall, 3 meter radius is the way to go. And like I said, I think the mini ramp feels the best, which would be 1 meter tall, 1.5 meter radius. I think this feels the best, really. Cool. I'll check this in, and then anyone can hopefully has an example. It'd be a little easier for them to make their stuff.